Good evening, everyone. We want to welcome you again to another one in our series of Listen and Learn. We have had a wonderful 3 times that we have had in this series. Yes. And I hope for those of you that are new, I'm sorry you missed the other 2 because they were great, but I'm so glad you're here tonight because this is going to be great also. So we want to thank you for being here tonight. Tonight we have Lisa and Lyann are going to talk to us and tell about their story, and they'll be with us in a few minutes. And we just want to thank them for being so gracious to come in and share their story tonight. So thank you very much to both of you on that. So let's start tonight with a word of prayer. God, we thank you for the people here tonight who show that they want to learn and they're willing to listen. Open our hearts and our minds as we hear from Lisa and Lyann. We are so blessed to have them and their willingness to share their story. We also are so thankful for April, leading us so skillfully through areas that, if not handled with love, patience, and her knowledge and experience, could have been not only not helpful, but also harmful. We send our love and prayers as she moves to Wyoming and ask for her safety, peace, and success. For all these things, we all say, Amen.
All right. So, guys, just a couple of ground rules before we begin here. Just reminders, if you've been here before, they really haven't changed. First, you are hearing the stories from Lisa and Lyann. These are their own personal journeys and their stories in their life. Remembering, though, they do not speak for the entire LGBTQIA community. Okay? These are their individual stories that they're going to share with us today. They also have the option, if there are questions they do not wish to answer, there is nothing wrong with them just saying, hey, not going to answer that one. Please don't be offended if we get to a time where we do offer questions and they don't answer it. Just understand that they have that full right, okay? Also, just a reminder, dialogue in this, the way this process works is we need y'all, when we get to times where there is an opportunity to ask a few questions, what we're going to do is we're going to break it down in groupings. So we're going to talk about a topic or an area for a little bit, and then once we've had a chance to kind of process, save your questions for the end of that topic. And then I'm going to ask you all, is there anyone that has a question related to whatever we just discussed, okay? And I'm going to ask that you phrase the question to Lisa and Lyann, not to the whole group, okay? So remember, it's a question from us to them, and they can have the opportunity to answer. And then last reminder that this is not a theology discussion, okay? If you're struggling, whether your understanding or interpretation of Scripture and how that relates, I would love for you to set a time to meet with Richard or myself. Richard first, or then me, actually, or Casey second. There we go, because she's the grad. Then me as third. I'm always the backup. But we would love to sit down with you guys and to talk theologically if that's a concern that you have. This is not the place for that. So just a reminder, this is not a place for questions or ideas or thoughts regarding that. Okay? All right. So we're going to start off first. We're going to talk about the topic of growing up. Growing up. And Lisa, I think we're going to start with you first. Tell us just a surprise. Tell us just a little bit about your childhood. What was childhood like for you growing up? I mean, just that whole experience.
Oh my gosh. Okay. This is on. I feel naked without my guitar.
You can bring it up here if you want. I mean,
It's at home. Oh, can I go get it? So there's a hula hoop. You'll never catch me in a hula hoop. Growing up was I would tell you that I had an amazing childhood. I come from a family that is extremely loving, well supportive. My mother used to tell me, "You were born 30," and so I was
pretty impressive.
Very stubborn child, and I questioned a lot of things, and I started noticing things about myself around the age of 5 or 6, like, elementary school. And I never said anything until I got a little bit older, but I was noticing things about myself, and I, being me, I just thought, oh, well, that's normal. And then until I realized that there were other people who were not having the same thoughts and questions. And I did not feel comfortable enough to come to my mom, who was, my background is my dad he was just a raging alcoholic, just a really bad alcoholic. He loved his family, but he just had so many things in life that he couldn't face or deal with. And so alcohol was his choice of coping. And my mother was feeling the strain of that. So they were married for 17 years, and she felt the strain of that. So me picked up early about being an emotional support for my mom. So I just didn't want to bother her with stuff like that because it really wasn't urgent, I guess. Going through school was terrifying, especially when they implemented this thing where you had to shower at school. You know, in physical therapy, in PE, you go, you sweat, you must take a shower. I was petrified to take a shower because I didn't think anybody was, thinking of things of me. And then I thought, I'm like, oh, everybody knows what my thoughts are, so I have to make sure that I'm not looking at anybody weird or anything like that, because the kids that I went to school with they would nail you on the smallest thing, and then I would be bullied for the rest of my life. I was already bullied because I was an overweight child, and I didn't want anyone to have any fire to add to that.
You're saying the atmosphere at that time in the schools was definitely not
very
conducive
hard.
to...
No, not conducive to being open.
Okay.
So I made every excuse in the world to not be in the shower. I would not dress out. I would, constantly leave clothes home. My tennis shoes, I would leave those at home. My shorts, I would leave those at home. Anything I could do to get out of having to be in the shower area, I would do that. Which doesn't mark well with your grades, but it was saving me. So there was that. And then the teachers never asked anything about what was going on. And I don't think back in 70 that they were taught to ask that. I think it was a subject that was avoided. I think the only thing that they really focused on was if you were showing signs of abuse, and which I was not, or if there was some other, health issue or something going on, then they would recognize that. But
and I think it's healthy to frame this moment because we had a question asking about different generations. Y'all, like me, were on that Generation X.
Yeah.
So we're the Gen X age, and y'all are actually on the forefront.
Yeah.
Of the Gen X. So this was culturally at that time just what I'm hearing is just something that really was not talked about.
Not much. No.
Not dealt with any of the students or teachers.
Swept under the rug.
Kind of don't ask, don't tell kind of thing.
You got it, big time.
Okay.
I'd say high school, when all the hormones kick in, high school was really rough. Because I'm having feelings for my friends, my feminine friends. I'm having feelings for these girls, and I'm like, what do I do with this? So I did everything that anybody who's trying to hide something would do. I got a boyfriend. And my boyfriend was also my best friend. And the only thing we had in common was we loved music. So we both played guitar. I got involved with his family, who did what they would call hymn sings. And what they would do is go from church to church to church. And we would sing all the old hymns, with a full band. And we got to travel a lot of the area, and I had a great time with that and felt very comfortable and accepted through the music. I remember Nate was saying that at one point you look at yourself and you're like, are you accepting me for me, or are you accepting me because I have a talent to share? And I felt like that my entire life. Yeah. So
felt like the talent was put out there.
Oh yeah, it was a shield.
Okay.
I can do this, and you can't touch me because I can do this.
Were there people you could connect? Because you mentioned the boyfriend. Is he one you could connect with and even share any of this, or is this?
No.
So there was no one at that time.
There was no one at that time.
Okay. Very tough.
And I had 2 openly gay friends in high school. There was, come to find out, I went back home and talked with all of my friends who happen to be gay now. I mean, they're out and whatnot, and I'm like, wow, we had this whole force of people, and not one of us said a word to each other, because the 2 openly gay gentlemen were horribly chastised. Some of them were beaten. They were caught in they were taken advantage of in showers.
Yeah.
They were,
So sorry.
kicked and mocked. And as much as I wanted to stand up for that, there was no safety in that whatsoever for me. So I stayed silent, and I supported as much as I could support.
Yeah. Definitely a challenge time.
Oh, yeah, it's very challenging.
What? When did your family first notice?
I came out to my family when I was 19, and my mother sat across the table from me, and she said, "Oh, I've known this about you since you were 5." And I'm like, "Well, that is beautiful, Mom. Why didn't you say something to me?" And she's like, "Because I was hoping it wasn't true." And I'm like, okay, I got that. She said, "You picked a hard life for yourself." And I'm like, you use an interesting word, picked. This is not something anybody picks. I had no choice in the matter. It's like saying, I got to pick my eye color when I came into this world, or I got to pick my hair color, or my size, and I didn't get to pick any of that. That I remember, there was no checklist. It said, yes, I want to be this, 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 and this. Oh, and by the way, I want to be homosexual. None of that. But my mother loves me. Oh, she's passed on, but she still loves me unconditionally. And she got her first full-fledged hint at this when I was in high school, and I was sitting at the table doing homework. And so the table is here, and my mom's got her back to me doing dishes. Out of the blue, I'm like, "Mom, got a question for you." And she said, "What's that?" And I said, "You ever thought about sleeping with women?"
How'd she respond to that?
All I heard were the dishes crashing. And I'm like, "Are you okay?" She said, "Yes, I'm fine." The head went down. Yes, honey. Anybody who has ever told you that they've never, ever glanced at that is lying. And I'm like, okay, that's good to know. But have you ever thought about it? Dishes went in the water again. And she's like, no. Like I said, a fleeting thing, but no. There's one thing about thinking about it, and there's a whole thing about doing it. You have to be careful of making sure that fantasy is not fact. And I remember that, through my growing up, fantasy is not fact. And I'm like, okay.
So it sounds like your mom was definitely a central influence, at least in your life, not only as a child, but in your teenage years.
Absolutely.
Even in young adult years.
Mm-hmm. Always.
Okay.
Always. Okay. Back before gays could get married, homosexuals get married, we used to do what was called a union ceremony, just with family and friends. And I had found someone I thought at the time was going to be in my life until I stopped breathing. And I asked my mother if she would come to a union ceremony, and she told me no.
Wow.
She said, I cannot support that.
Oh my
and I'm
goodness.
like, okay. But that let me know where she was at.
Sure.
And again, my mother loved me unconditionally, so there was no hate or anger or any of that stuff. It was just, this is where I'm at, and this is what I can do, and I can't support you in that, but I will support you in anything else that you want. She said, why can't you just make a covenant to one another and call it a day? And I'm like, that's exactly what we're doing, Mom. But in front of
Agree
people.
what it is.
And she was like, well, okay, but I just can't be there. And I'm like, okay, I get that.
Wow, I'm so sorry. Wow.
Well, it was the time, and it
Absolutely.
is what it is. And the person that I thought was going to have the most trouble with it was my I have a stepdad and I have a biological dad. And my biological dad and I never got along very well because of the alcoholism, but I took him out to, his favorite thing was pizza and beer. So I had my dad in front of me with pizza and beer. And, okay, I have this conversation with Mom. I need to have it with you. I'm gay. And he's like, well, kiddo, you got to do what you got to do to make your life yours and be honest with who you are. And I thought I was going to fall out of my chair.
Wow. Such a different reaction than you might expect.
And I'm like, okay. Now, my stepdad, this was kind of cute, so I'm just going to throw this out there. After I told my mother, that same day, he and I had a fondness of music. We played guitars together, and his favorite person to sing was Ricky Skaggs. And so we're in the living room, and we're playing Ricky Skaggs, and I kept forgetting the lyrics to the songs because I was so nervous because I'm getting ready to come out to my dad, and he just stopped, and he said, what's the matter? You queer?
Wow.
And I said, well, as a matter of fact, yes, I am. And he went, does it cause you to forget lyrics? And I said, no. And he said, okay, then, can we move on? And I'm like,
wow.
okay.
It almost seems like all the times that you share with all your family members, they weren't quite what you were expecting.
Not
They
exactly,
were all
no.
just a little different.
Just a little different.
My goodness.
So, yeah.
Wow. Well, guys, I want to take just a moment as give you a chance to breathe, first of all, but also if you have any questions for Lisa about growing up, or maybe when she shared about coming out. Lisa, what state were you in? Where did you grow up?
Kentucky, Louisville. It is considered a state, even though it's a commonwealth. So just get over it.
No geography lessons
No
tonight.
geography
Come on.
lessons. Yeah, in the middle of Bible Belt Central. Yeah, so I grew up in a town of 250 people. Everybody knew what everybody was doing.
What was your relationship to church?
I didn't have one for a long time. I was taken to church. We grew up in we went to a Pentecostal church that was an hour away. Most of my dad's family were from that church, so it was very family-oriented as far as his side of the family goes. There was no cards, no dresses to a certain level. No one cut their hair. There were only certain things that were talked about. It was very restrictive, and they preached homosexuality as a big sin. You're going to burn. So I literally believed I would go into.
Yeah, and we're going to get into faith journey in just a little bit. So I'm going to push pause for the rest of that one, but we'll get into that one in just a little bit there. So, any other questions about her growing up? Yes. So Gen X were born between 1965 and is it early 80s?
75. And
Yeah, it was a little after that, I think.
the year I graduated from high school is 83.
Yeah. So these are early 80s to I think maybe early 90s.
Yeah.
I'd have to look up to be sure. Someone can Google it and tell me. Is it 84?
Yeah,
Okay.
we're like right on the edge because I for a long time I thought, oh, I'm a baby boomer because 65 was the end of baby boomer. So baby boomer and Gen X are like very close.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. All right, Lyann, let's give you a chance. Maybe talk to us a little bit about growing up. What was growing up like for you? And as she laughs wildly.
Is this on?
It's on.
Okay. Did you hear the one about the dog and the cat and the bird that went into the library? You didn't hear that? Okay, I'll tell you later. You know, when Lisa talked to me about doing this and everything, we kind of were sharing our stories again and everything. And my story is so much different than hers. In fact, I kind of wish I had hers. But there are times when I look back at my story and realize that it has made me who I am today, and I'm very blessed for that. So, 1966. So I graduated in 1984. So I'm younger. I just want to say I'm younger. She robbed the cradle. 6 months. I grew up in a central town in Illinois, about 25,000 people. And if there was one person that knew about everybody that did everything in town, it was my dad. I lived in a house that looked pretty on the outside, but was had every type of abuse you can imagine. He was an active alcoholic, but for the long time, he acted out a lot of his anger and stuff like that. So, you know, the mental and physical and sexual and just all kinds of abuse that you can imagine from someone, especially just from your dad. So growing up, God wasn't spoke of in our house because my dad, I think, thought he was God. And Mom was very codependent, and she pretty much would bow down to anything that Dad wanted or didn't want. And so I think during the elementary and middle school years were pretty okay. I guess boys started recognizing me. I started recognizing boys. But I will tell you this, and then this will help you understand a little bit of my story, is that I never came out to my parents. And I'm 57, and both of them have passed. So, but when I hit the age of 13, abuse happened a lot more often. And I got through high school with extracurricular activities that kept me out of the house. I didn't have to go to PE because I was in ROTC. And I was just trying to stay kind of alive, you know, stay a kid. My mom, Dad never showed up for anything. I was in band, all this other kind of stuff. Not really supportive. And so, you know, when I graduated high school at 18, I immediately went into the Navy, and I was ready to go. So, so my childhood, I look back and say, well, you know what? There's a lot of lessons learned, and somebody asked me earlier about, you know, telling my story, and I've shared my story before in conversations with people because I just know that God has put me in this place to where I can share with somebody that maybe will gain something that will help them through anything. So that was actually, you know, growing up.
So I'm curious because, you know, same generation here. Mm-hmm. Did you experience some of those similar kind of environments with school and school kids as far as you don't talk about this, it's not discussed?
Well, there wasn't a lot of stuff discussed in my house. So the only thing that I can remember that was discussed at school was if somebody was being abused at home and it came out, then everybody discussed it.
Okay.
So I never said anything to anybody, but I think mostly I was just trying to get through school.
Okay.
Just trying to get through.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Definitely, my goodness. What about, so you said you never came out to your parents. Were there anyone that, your first memories when you did share that you were?
Well, like I said, my story's a little bit different than Lisa's. I didn't come out until I was in my 30s, and I was going to my second alcohol rehab through the VA. And my therapist, counselor there, he said, you know, you're not going to get this program. You might as well just leave. And I'm like, I got to get this program, you know, because I was at death's door and my daughter was involved and stuff. And so I was like, I got to get it. And he says, the only way you're going to get and stay sober is if you're honest with yourself. And I'm like, I can do that. So it was time to do that. So I had gone to therapy, and I started sharing with a therapist about a friend of mine that had feelings for, didn't know what to do with them. So, and that kind of put me in a different direction in my life. But like I said, my parent, I never came out to my parents.
Did you find any support there, or were there other individuals in your life or that was supportive as you were kind of walking that journey?
I did. Actually, I was a little bit fearful because this was, let's see, I got sober 22 years ago. Okay. So about 22, 23 years ago, oh, thanks. It's really one day at a time. Truly, one day at a time. I live with her.
You've never had it so good.
I know. I'm adorable, so. What was I saying?
Talking about you had some support.
Oh, yeah, support. I was afraid of coming out in the VA because I knew that when I was in the Navy, it was really not spoke of. And then the government changed to don't ask, don't tell about the time I was getting out. And so I wasn't sure, but I needed to go somewhere, and they offered the help to me. I have a service-connected disability, so I was able to go there, free of charge. And I'm like, yeah, I want to talk to somebody because my life was kind of getting out of control. So, yeah, did that answer your question?
Yeah. Okay. What about when did you share with your daughter?
I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Well, let's see. I was living with a friend from work, and my daughter came over. It was her weekend. She was about 15, 16. She drove over from her dad's, and we were driving down Dale Mabry in Tampa. We lived in Tampa. I lived in Tampa. But we were headed to Barnes & Noble because that was our thing, Starbucks and a book. Well, I'm driving, and we go to Barnes & Noble and everything, and I said, Nicole, I got something I got to tell you. I need to talk to you. And she was, I don't know, she was a teenager looking all over. And so I finally said that I'm gay. And she's like, I want to go home. And I'm like, okay, we can go home and talk about it. No, I want to go back to Dad's. And I'm like, well, okay. So we went home. She got in her car. She took off. Her dad called me, and he says, I really wish you would have told me first, because then I would have known what transpired. And I said, well, you weren't on my list. So we're not married anymore. And so she didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. She stayed at her dad's, wouldn't call me, wouldn't talk to me on the phone, nothing. And then finally one day she called me and said she wanted to come back to my house for the weekend. And I said, sure. So we came back, we talked. And she said that she was okay with it. It was such a shock to her. And I think that at that time, even still, her dad was remarried, and I hadn't really been in a relationship with anybody. She was still kind of hoping that her dad and I would get back together. That ended probably that next year after that. So, yeah. So it was a little tough, but it was okay. I mean, it was good. We talked it, and we talk now about everything. So,
good.
Yeah.
Any other? I'm thinking because we are. Yeah. Well, let me open up to some questions here, guys, and see if we have some questions for Lyann. Yeah. Talk loud.
Can I answer?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, when I started noticing how I've had feelings for a friend of mine, and started going to therapy and was able to talk about it in a neutral environment, I started thinking back in my life, and I believe that I had these feelings when I was 8 years old. And I look back, I was absolutely in love with my third grade teacher, And when she passed, her partner was next to her too. But, it I started putting stuff together and really made a lot of sense. And unfortunately, that's when my grandmother passed away, and she was really the only person, I think, that knew who I was. So, but, yeah.
Other questions? Yeah.
I should remember this, Lisa, and I apologize. Did either one of you have siblings that you could talk to about this at all, or that were going through this at all?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, my brother and I, we're like what you call Irish twins. We're 11 months, 3 weeks apart. And for all intents purposes, my brother was my BFF. He was also my whipping post for a long time. And he used to beat up on me, I used to beat up on him, but nobody could touch us, because we were there for each other. When my brother went to live with my dad right after high school, and that was in Virginia, and I stayed in Kentucky. And so my mom, after she got married to my stepdad, they took off and left me with the house at 18. Left me with the house. So I know you can handle this. Your grandparents are here if you have any issues. So I was left with the house payment and all the bills and all that stuff, and I was working full time and going to school, blah, blah, blah. I was very responsible, figure that out. And I get a call from my brother one day saying, I'm tired of living with Dad, can I come home? And I'm like, okay. Well, I had my girlfriend living with me. And I'm like, so there are things that you need to know. And one of them is you can't question who I hang around with. Because when I came out, my whole system shifted. It was no longer, let me be kind to you with, I'm going to live my life and this is the way it's going to be. And so I was mindful of people's feelings, but I wasn't going to cut my life short. So I'm basically presenting my brother with this platter of, you step into the house, I have someone living with me. Don't question my friends. And he said, are you trying to tell me you're gay? And I'm like, well, I wasn't trying to tell you that, but yes. And he's like, I've known this about you since you were, I don't know, 10 or something. And I'm like, again, it would have been nice if somebody had told me, So he became my sounding board at that point. I'm so thankful to God for that. He would go to the gay bars with me just as my buddy, and we would just hang out and watch drag shows and stuff like that, and just go have fun as brothers and sisters, just hanging out. And then I would go fishing with him, which I can't stand fishing. I look at the fish and they're like, and I'm like, oh. If you have asthma, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And so I'm like, I can't. So, but I would go fishing with him because that was what he liked to do. And don't get any ideas. I'm not going to do that. So yeah, he was a good sounding board, and even today he's still a good sounding board. We're very, very close, my brother and I.
Lyann, how about you?
I have one brother, and he also was raised by my dad. So he took on those learned beliefs. And let me see. I didn't come out to him until I was in Texas in 2014. Told him over the phone. Yeah. And because I was ready to tell Dad at the time, Mom had passed, I was ready to tell Dad. So I call up Kirk, we're talking, and he goes, I said, I got something to tell you. I was sweating. I'm gay. And he goes, yeah, I know. And I'm like, what do you mean you know? He goes, well, look at your hair. I said, what does that have to do with anything? He goes, yeah, I knew. Okay. He goes, but I don't think you should tell Dad. And I'm like, well, why not? I'm going to call Dad. Maybe he'll have an heart attack.
Just family humor. Family humor.
Family
we all have
humor,
those
yes,
moments.
please. But I never did end up telling my dad. But my brother, he actually came to our wedding and gave me away. So that was Yeah, it was awesome. And it was exactly the way it was supposed to be. You know, after Dad passed, my brother and I sat down, no more secrets in the family. We even told Dad no more secrets. But so it was nice. Him and his wife came, and he's, I don't know, he lives in Tennessee, redneck, fishing, driving a truck, does happy. He's very happy with his life.
So there's still some connections there over the years that, especially now, which is a wonderful
Yeah.
thing to be able
Yeah.
to celebrate.
Especially now.
Yeah. Any other questions for Leanne?
I was curious because you said in high school, you know, you were very focused on ROTC and that kind of thing. Did you have any kind of friendships that you felt were helpful to you, or because you were guarding so much, did that stop you really having a close friendship?
Yeah, you know what? I did have a very close friendship. My friend Sherry lived 2 houses down. We both moved into our houses about the same time. My birthday is May 2nd, hers is May 6th. And she came from a big family of 6 kids, and it was just me and my brother. So we were like sisters. And during the summer, we were tight. During school, we had different curriculums. So, but I remember one time she came over, and we were playing house. And it just ended up that we were just laying down on the bed, and yeah, okay, you know, and she broke it up. I mean, we weren't doing anything. We were just laying there talking, actually. And she's like, yeah, okay, I'm done. I'm like, okay. So, but I'm in her friend today. She moved back up to Illinois, but.
All right, let's move on and talk about, oh, sorry, one more? Yeah.
Did you have any judgmental experiences while you were in the Navy regarding your sexuality?
Well, I certainly certainly didn't act on anything if it was there. But I will tell you this: a lot of my Navy career, I was drunk and under the influence. So I did get that from my dad, and I had seen when I was in Scotland, I had seen what bullies basically had done to a couple of women in my berthing compartment that were friends. And it wasn't pleasant, it wasn't nice. And it was something that I never ever wanted to go through. So, you know, I'm like, I wanted to help the girl, and, you know, but I also dated men too. In fact, I dated more men than I dated women. So, yeah.
Definitely a challenging time for both of you during those young teen years and young adult years. Well, let's talk about the two of you now, all right? How did you guys meet? So tell us the story.
I'll tell this one.
Go
You're allowed to add in.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, I was playing the guitar. Oh, that's her. Go ahead.
Yeah, so, okay. Oh, I do not tell it better. I just tell my viewpoint of it. So we met in, was it 2011? 2011?
Yeah, 20.
Yeah. 2011, I was playing with my band, and her then partner came to a performance. And I took a break, and she and I sat down, and we just struck up this really cool conversation. And I'm like, well, okay, somebody who can actually say something articulate without alcohol. And but in the business that I'm in, alcohol is prevalent all the time. I mean, people go out to have a good time, and some people just forget there's a little fine line between having a good time and OMG, you shouldn't be driving. So it was refreshing to have a conversation with somebody who was not drinking and who was observant of everything that was going on. And she had some really cool insights and questions and whatnot. And so we had a really good connection with that. And so fast forward, I mean, when did you move to Texas? 2013.
2013.
Yeah, so 2013 she moves to Texas. And in 2014, my wife at the time, who has since passed on, but my wife, I'm going to cry again. Why am I so teary? Oh my gosh. I know why you're so teary. I'm sitting next to you, right? Well, of course. Yeah. So anyway, my wife, just her emotional mental status went down, and she had several head injuries, and she was undiagnosed with what I would consider chronic concussion syndrome, and so she, bless your heart, thank you so much. I don't care, that works. Here you go, honey. You were asking for it earlier, so there you go. Anyway, I felt like I was totally alone. I had two good friends who were people that I would talk with, and other than that, all of my ex-wife's friends disappeared. They just vanished. They wouldn't call. They wouldn't stop by. No one was there, and God knew exactly what I needed. So I got a email message from her ex saying, "We're not together anymore." And I'm like, "I'm sorry to hear that." And then I got an email message from her, "We're not together anymore." And so I'm sorry to hear that. And then, but she was like, "How are you?" And I'm like, "This is how I am." And then I just unloaded. And she's like, "Oh my." And so we started calling one another. And so she was my emotional support all through that whole situation. And every morning, I had coffee, and I was talking to her, and I was cleaning the pool, and I was sitting down, and I was getting grounded because she knew that I needed to hear, what am I going to do for myself today? How am I going to support myself today? Where is your spirit? All of that. I wasn't getting any of that because I wasn't opening up to get any of that. And I was very quiet at church too, so it was like I didn't go to my pastors and say, "This is what's going on." So we developed a really good connection, a really, really true, no hold back friendship where we just discussed everything, and I had never had that before. All of my friendships have been very superficial, with the exception of maybe 3 or 4. Very superficial because, again, it goes back to that. Are you wanting to get to know me for me, or are you wanting to get to know somebody who sings and can do something for you? And I've had that several times, and it's very crushing when that happens. So we developed a really cool friendship, and then, go ahead.
Okay, I'll take over. Just
Okay.
Part
so
two.
in 2015, I moved back from Texas and single with 2 dogs, and Lisa had a house that was it was going to be available for rent, but I was renting an apartment in Tampa with my daughter and her husband. So I asked Lisa, I said, "Can you rent me the back room?" Had its own access, wanted it for a writing room and an office and everything. And she said, "Yeah, great." Well, then my daughter wanted to move back in with her dad, probably because, he pays for everything. And so I was over at the rental house with my 2 dogs, and I said, "Do you think you can maybe rent me the whole house with..." What'd I say?
So she says, "Instead of just renting as an office, can I move into that back bedroom?" And I said, "Well, certainly. How much would it go up?" And so we figured that out. And I forgot you had dogs. I forgot she had dogs. So I'm in Sanibel doing a gig. And she says, "Oh, by the way, the dogs are at the house, and I'm over at a friend's house." And I'm like, "Dogs?" And she's like, "Well, yeah." And I had moved back into the house because Sue had tried suicide, and I couldn't be in the same space with her at that time. I had to be in a safe place, and my house was my safe place. And so I come home, and there's 2 dogs looking at me in a crate.
They loved you.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
And they knew sucker when they saw it.
Yes.
Sucker.
Yep. I was chump beef.
Yeah, you were
Yeah. Yeah.
So when did you guys know each other was the one? When was this more than just a friendship? More than just someone renting a space for their dogs,
Well, you know what? When I was in Texas, I I prayed a lot and turned a lot to asking God, not necessarily for things, but just to show me what it is, to find my purpose, because I needed to have a purpose. I wanted a purpose. And so when we started talking on the phone and everything, I think I told you I was going to leave and go to Michigan, and I was all ready to go to Michigan. I told my boss, I said, well, I'm leaving. He goes, you're going to Florida. And I said, no, I'm going to Michigan. And I'm like, why would you say Florida? And he's like, well, you just visited there. And I'm like, yeah. So anyway, then I'm living on a horse ranch, and I'm out with the dogs, and I just have this epiphany that God, like, just took a brick and slung it up against my face and said, hey, I need you to go to Florida. And I'm like, yes, he does. And so I'm like, I battled with it for like 2 weeks. I'm like, I don't want to go to Florida. I've been there. I want to go to Michigan, hang out with my friends. You know, my daughter's married now. He can have her. And so it was like, I didn't want to go against God. So I'm like, I guess I'm going to Florida. So I came to Florida, and our foundation on our friendship was so strong that I think that even in the beginning it could have withstood any storm. And it had some trying times in the beginning with the other stuff going on. But I think what I had found was, and what I prayed for, was that I found someone in my life that I could spend my life with that loved me just for me, because I never felt that from my parents. You know, I wanted to feel loved by somebody just for me, just
you could
who
be
I
your
am.
full authentic self.
Yeah.
Someone who would love you just as you are.
Adorable.
Yeah, and that's the key thing, the authentic self, not
Yeah.
the personified self.
Sure.
So I have a personified self because I've been in, performance mode all my life. And to have a conversation with somebody who is talking to me as my authentic self, no makeup, this is the bare bones, this, snot, tears, blah, blah, blah. And have them look at me and go, you know what, I love you. You're a wonderful child of God, and you're worthy. And I wasn't hearing that. I was hearing other things, but I heard her. And I too had prayed a lot. Prayed. And I thought, that previous relationships, oh, this is the one. I've been praying for this one. And no, that wasn't it. And then, the adage of sometimes it takes a traumatic situation to shift our paradigm. And I had that. And it stopped me dead in my tracks. I'm like, this is not working. What is it? What is it that you want me to do? And so I prayed and I got my answer here. And it scared the crap out of me. And
Me too.
because I wasn't used to having a relationship with a friend. That enamored thing of, oh my gosh, you're the best thing since sliced bread. And then, a couple of years later, you're like, who are you? And what happened to the person that I, because it was all about feeling at that point, and there was no substance. And this was all about substance. And I wasn't used to having substance first. And I'm like, oh, this is great. So, slow and steady.
Just the fact that you shared about just that connection as friends and the depth of your friendship and how that's really blossomed into your relationship and then into marriage.
Yeah.
So how long have you all been married?
We're married.
Yes, we're married.
Married?
Honey. Look, see
There we go.
that right there. We got married January 15th of last year. So, yeah, year and a half. We've been married for a year and a half.
So what does marriage mean to you both? Each one at a time. Think about it for a minute. What's marriage mean? Why is that important? Because you.
Why is that important?
Yeah. Why is that important? You could have lived together. You could have just been partners in life. What was it of that marriage that really said yes?
Okay, so if you have been told all your life that you can't do something, you are not allowed to do that. You are not allowed to get married. You are not allowed to do that. The first thing you want to do is go out and do that. So when we were allowed to get married, all of these people that I knew were like, "Oh, we're getting married," and then in like 6 months they were getting divorced. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. So it's the truth, isn't it? It's the truth. You know, look at it. It's not. I mean, it's a progression. It's wonderful, but this is a lifelong commitment. This is a commitment between souls. This is commitment between God and us, and it's a commitment between community and us as well, because, you know, we together as a unit support our community, our church community, our family community, our LGBTQ plus community, neighborhood. It's all about supporting each other, and I think marriage for me, I can only speak for me, I had a really, 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 really good role model for marriage, and that were my grandparents. They would have been married 60 years, but my grandmother passed away in an auto accident before that. But they were phenomenal together. They were just they were classy. They loved one another. They answered each other's questions. They had a certain routine that they followed. Nothing was so overwhelming that it shook them apart. They were always dealing with things together. And I wanted that. And I have that now. So I have that firm foundation. It's nice to have the firm foundation, you know, between us as well with God. So it's like, for me, that's what the marriage is about.
How about you, Lyann?
I was married before. I was married 7 years, and have a beautiful daughter out of that. In fact, I got married in May, got pregnant in July. Funny how that happens. But we brought this beautiful child into this world, and you had an example of your grandparents. I had a bad example of my parents. My mom being codependent, my dad being an alcoholic and controlling. He was ex-Army, and discipline was something that he actually loved to do. And so I didn't really want any part of it. I didn't want to make any commitments to anybody. I just wanted to go off and be free and do whatever I wanted. And I met my husband at the time on the ship. He was my best friend. And that friendship died when we got married because life happened. I got pregnant. I blamed him. It was all his fault. And but we stayed together for the rest of the time for our daughter. And I didn't really think about marriage before until Lisa, because I truly felt that love that I had always yearned for. And I mean, I love David as a human, and he's my daughter's father. He's a wonderful man. But I was not in love with him, and no soul connection at all.
Wasn't that depth of friendship, too? That's what I'm hearing that you all have.
No, really. I mean, even though we were married, I was keeping stuff from him and no communication. And I was still active in my disease a lot, too. So it was just not a great time. So, but I got my daughter, so that's best. But the love that Lisa has shown me, even as a friend, is something that I never experienced before, because I can relate with, what people can get from you, and that's learned behavior, like from my dad, really. I mean, he just taught me so much. But with her, she didn't want anything from me but me. And we just, we sat down, we'd talk, we'd have coffee. I'd tell her even my horror stories, and she would still be there. She wouldn't get up and leave. And it was great. And just, so the love just blossomed. And marriage, it looked like it looked like something that I wanted, because I want to spend the rest of my life with this lady. I want to be able to be there for her and allow her to be there for me. You know, I have absolutely utmost respect and kind. It's just amazing how much our friendship and our relationship has grown. Wow. So.
That's beautiful. We're going to open it up to some questions about their marriage or their time together. Yes. Okay, or about their relationship. If it's.
You can cancel it if it's not appropriate.
Okay.
Did you ever face not coming out due to you will not be able to perform in the church or do something if you come out?
Yeah. I went to a church and I wanted to be part of the band, and they just flat out said, if you are X, Y, and Z, then don't bother. And I'm like, oh, okay. And they hadn't asked me anything, but that was part of the questionnaire for it. No kidding. And I also applied for a college, just so you know. I applied for a Christian college, and on the questionnaire for the Christian college was, are you homosexual? And I'm like, okay. And they had a great music program. Couldn't go there. And I'm like, okay, wonderful. And so I've had both spectrums of that. So I've had, no, you can't, to I went to an LGBTQ plus church, and it was everybody could get up. And so I went from no, you can't to everybody can get up and be in the band and this, that, and the other. And everybody, I'm just saying, love y'all, but everybody shouldn't be up on the stage.
Amen to that.
Because there are some people who can't play an instrument, and there are some people who couldn't carry a tune if they had a bucket, as my grandparents used to say. And
You're following your theme just because you can
doesn't mean you should. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And we'll hit again. We're coming to the faith story, so hang in there, Jacqueline. I know that's where you're wanting to go. Yes, marriage and relationship.
Yeah, and it's more of an observation based on what you guys were talking about, how your relationship developed through friendship. And the way you described that, in my mind, has no difference to anyone else. We all want that in our relationship with our partner. And so I just think it was really great the way you were able to describe that, so we can see that love is love.
Thank you.
We all want the same thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's exactly right. I know.
Any other questions?
Oh,
Yes,
no.
Tim.
Oh my gosh. I wrote this wonderful song for one of my girlfriends. It was so sappy and so wonderful. And I went to visit my mom when she was in Atlanta, when they left the house and they left me there. And so, oh no, I took my girlfriend with me. And before I came out, and she said, have you written anything new? And I'm like, oh, I've written this great song. And so I write this song, and it's all about love and this woman. And my mom went, what? Who's that about? And I'm like, her. And she's like, oh, okay. So then I never did that again. I always blanketed it with pronouns that were appropriate pronouns. And instead of her, it was love. Or in no, him, there was another neutral term that went into all of that. And so I got really good at weaving neutrality in and out of all of my music. The one good thing was, if I was singing someone else's song and the words were she, I could keep that because they had already written that, and I was just following the program.
Oh, good plan.
Yeah.
Is there another hand? Yes.
I was at one of your concerts at Ruth Decker. That was amazing. Thank you. You had two other friends or three other friends? There were three or four.
Yeah, there were four of us.
That
Four
was
other.
the most amazing, informational experience for me.
Thank you.
Still making new songs like
Yes. Yeah. I'm still writing. Yeah.
And just so you know, she does not sing to me at the house. Everybody, that sees, oh, I bet she sings to you. No, she doesn't. I try and
She doesn't go
sing in the
fishing. She
shower.
doesn't sing.
Doesn't
Come
let
on.
me.
We got to work on this.
She's got her studio. She can sing out there.
All right. Other questions on marriage or relationship? Yeah.
I just want to add something. After meeting Lisa and talking, building this friendship and everything, and just as it got, I want to say tighter, but just as it got to where I actually felt, certainly I can be myself and everything. Obviously I'd already come out. I'd already dated a couple women and stuff like that. And you'll learn something else in my faith talk, but. My mom, my mom took my dad to Disney one weekend, and I was calling to leave a message on their answering machine, and my mom answered, and I said, "I thought you guys were at Disney for the weekend." She's like, "Yeah, I had to bring your dad home. There's just so many homosexuals out there. I thought he was going to get sick. Those homosexuals, they're sick in the head. They need to be put away." So I had that in the back of my mind at that time, and I was an adult then. And I think it's still, still today, the circle and the tribe that we have as a family and as friends, and certainly meeting people here, is that I feel loved just as I am. And that's really God's doing, because He made me, and it's just, again, all of my story has just made me out to who I am today. So I'm just very blessed.
Now let's talk about faith journey. Let's talk about either one of you can go first. Your faith journey as individuals, as a couple. How has that progressed? We're gonna.
So, picture it way back. Picture it. Okay, just so going back to the relationship thing, we had our vows. He knows this. We didn't share each other's vows with each other. We wrote them, and we were going to surprise each other with it. And we didn't share what we were going to wear. We were going to surprise each other, and we did surprise each other with that. And we had the same color scheme. It worked out really well. And the beginning line of each of our vows was, "Picture it." From the Golden Girls, because we love the Golden Girls.
God bless their souls.
Yes. So anyway, faith journey. Faith journey has been rough. It's been rough. It's hard to be in a community when they look at you and go, "You're going to burst into flame for thinking what you're thinking." And, there's responsibility on both of those parts. I was very quiet and very mute and didn't seek out someone to understand me. And I also think that timing is everything, because had I sought someone who gave me the wrong advice or the wrong path, it could have really been detrimental to my psyche, my who I am, my authentic self. And when I was 13, I was baptized at the Pentecostal church, went down to a creek. It was very cold in the creek, and I have a fear of water because I almost drowned when I was 7. And I go into the creek, and I'm like, "Oh, Lord, the water is up to here, and I'm short, So I go in, the pastor dunks my head, and I come back up, "No, you're all your sins have been washed away, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, great. I don't feel any different. At 13, I didn't understand fully what that meant. And we were having a revival weekend that weekend. And all of my father's family was there. My mom was there. My grandparents were there. And my mother was very, very faith-driven and could feel God in everything. And I got that from her. And I'm so glad I got that, because I can go outside and look at a tree and hug a tree and go, oh my God, this was created by God. And I can have that connection, the birds and, people that I see. And even though I don't understand the people that I talk to sometimes, they are creations of God. And so we're all connected that way. And so at 13 on that weekend, my mother was very much into the spirit of things and just in her own little zone, like kind of meditation kind of thing. And two of the elders of the church, well, wives of the elders of the church, walked up to me and said, would you like to feel what your mother is feeling now? And I'm like, eventually, because I'm skeptic. I don't know what that means. And I'm like, eventually. And they're like, well, no time like the present. And I'm like, okay. One grabs me under one arm, one grabs me on the other arm, and I'm literally being dragged down to the altar. I'm put down on my knees and said, all you need to do is pray. And I'm like, you need to leave me alone, because I'm not ready for this. I am not ready for this. Oh, you just need to pray. No, I'm not ready for this. It was very disturbing. And I broke down, I'm crying, and my mother finally comes over and she says, what are you doing to my child? Well, we just want her to be in the same spirit. And she's, no, she will come to that in her own time. And so she was like, let my child up. And I'm like, I will never, ever step foot back in this church again. And so I subsequently never stepped back into church for the next, 30 years.
Wow.
When I moved to Florida in 96, the first thing that I wanted to do was find a church. I don't know why.
Why the change?
I don't
Was it the
know,
change?
because I was here on my own. I had my friends that I moved down here with, but my mom said, maybe you need to find a church that you can connect with and build yourself up in community like that. And I'm like, okay. Well, I had done my research, and I knew that there were LGBTQ churches everywhere. So I went to an LGBTQ plus church. I didn't like it because all they talked about was politics. It was politics this, politics that. How dare they, tell us we can't be who we are. And I'm like, I didn't come here for that. I came here to be fed spiritually, and I am not getting fed spiritually. I'm watching CNN from the pulpit, and I didn't like that. So I didn't go back to that church. So I tried another church. And it was a great church because I wound up being their music person for a couple of years. And even though they were a great church, I only went there like a couple of times because I still had that trauma thing going on in the back of my head. And my mother got sick. This is in 2008. My mother got sick. And they were having this old-time revival concert at this church. And I'm like, I think my mother would like that because she loved, Pentecostal style music. And so I took her to the church. So I took her to an LGBTQ plus church with an old-time revival music.
How'd she react?
She loved it. Loved it. I don't like the gay thing shoved down my throat, but I did love the music. And I'm like, okay, the gay thing. Okay, duly noted. And then so she passed away. And that Pastor Joyce, and she's a remarkable woman, looked at me and said, do you have a place to celebrate your mother's life? I'm like, no, I don't. She's like, you do now. So we did her celebration of life there, and that gave me the kick that I needed to be in a community that was supportive and really focused on making sure that my spiritual growth was taking place. And I got that. And once that level was met, then I needed to move on to another level of growth, and I wasn't able to obtain it at that church. And so then Nikki, who used to do sound for Contemporary, said, hey, they're looking for a musician. They're looking for a musician and a singer. Are you open? And I'm like, I'm so open. And so came here and walked in with my guitar, and Kim over here looked at me and said, no, you have to come back because we have to audition. And I'm like,
We audition everybody.
we
just so we're
auditioned
clear.
everybody. And I'm like, okay. So, and as they say, the rest is history. And I have had such spiritual growth here. When I first walked through the doors here, I was scared to death because y'all don't know me. And there's that whole thing of, this is what I can offer you. Will you like me on this? And then I realized that I don't need to have that persona. I just need to be me, and I just need to show up, because God loves me just as I am. Even if I never picked up a guitar or sang another note, I still have value, and I am still a beloved child of God, and I still want to grow, and I still want to learn, and I still want to do those things. So, and that's where I'm at now.
And just seeing that in your teaching, moving from that beautiful place of continuing to grow yourself, but stepping now into leading and teaching others. And I think that's been just a beautiful part of your story here, is just seeing you share your passion and your gifts, not just the musical portions, but your passion for your faith and the ability to gather adults together and to walk them through their faith journey, being their full authentic self as you are your full authentic self.
Which scares me to death. It does. I had a talk with Casey, and I'm like, this scares me. Well, it should. I don't want to ever lead anybody in the wrong direction. I don't speak for God. Don't even look at me like that. I don't speak for God. I know what I know, and I can only talk from my experience in that. And my experience is, if you don't have it at the beginning, it doesn't mean you won't get it later. I went to a Bible camp and asked Jesus to come into my life. And it was the most incredible moment. Just so incredible. And the people that were there were just incredible. And that one weekend did plant a really cool seed in me. It just took a long time for it to
Took a while
grow.
to grow.
Yeah. Just had to have the right water,
Leanne, what about you? Tell us about your faith journey.
Okay. It's part of me feels like I'm reliving my childhood, which is okay with that. But we have so many laughs. I mean, we laugh, we pee. Okay, so my faith journey. When I was 8, my grandmother passed away, and like I said, I believe that she was the only person who truly knew who I was. And my aunt was holding me at her funeral, and I went up, touched her, said she's cold. Yeah, she's with God now. And I'm like, oh, okay. Never really done anything with church growing up because it just wasn't something that my parents supported. They didn't encourage it. I played softball for their team, but I had to go to church like once a month. And so when I was 10, I started drinking. And by the time I was 19, I was in my first rehab with the Navy in Virginia. And I learned spirituality through the rooms of AA. And a lot of people have a higher power, whatever they call it. I come to determine that my higher power was God and the God of my understanding. And so I was 21, and I was sitting in a meeting, and I just started bawling, and I realized that my grandmother wasn't going to come back to me. And so that's when my friends in the rooms started sharing their experience, their church experience. Like, you need to find a church family, you know. So, after that, I got married, never went to church, nothing. Then I kept having that thing in the back of my head, what my mom had said, so maybe I'm sick. And so my second rehab at 35, I met some people, and they invited me to go to Idlewild Baptist Church. And I liked it there. There's a lot of people. It was when they were on a smaller church campus than they are now. But I liked it there. My friends were there. Music was great. It was just fun. But I was getting sober, and I had cut some ties with people, or they cut ties with me. And I didn't feel welcome in the church anymore. I did get baptized, and I was kind of like Lisa, like, I don't feel any different. I mean, really, I don't feel any different. Maybe wet. But so when I moved to Texas, and my ex left and went back to Michigan, I started diving into what I felt was I was being drawn to. Max Lucado is one of my favorite authors, and he has some Bible study books, and he references scripture in his book. So I would pull out my Bible, and my friend there that I worked for, him and his wife gave me a beautiful leather-bound Bible. And so I was surrounded with people that had faith, and they practiced that faith openly, so it was really very nice to be in their circle. And so when I came back, I was back here 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks. And she invited me to come to the church, and I'm like, all right. What kind of church is it? Because I had heard about the LGBTQ, and I kind of thought that I needed to go there. And she says, well, I went there. Yeah, you don't like this church. And I'm like, really? She says, yeah. She goes, Nikki comes. Nikki was her friend. I trust her. So I came, and really didn't talk much. But after 3 weeks of coming to the church, I joined as a member because I knew that this was where I was supposed to be. And I trusted God, and I trusted Lisa. And so...
What was it in those 3 weeks that really spoke to you to get to that decision?
I think even though I didn't talk a lot, I observed a lot. And I'd sit out in the coffee area, and I even served coffee a couple times. I sat out there and I watched people, and they come out of the traditional and then go into contemporary. But you guys all just seem like you loved life, that you loved where you are, you loved who you are and what you're doing in your life. And that meant so much. And then it's like, not only did you love yourself, but you loved your neighbor, because people were walking with each other and talking, having fun, laughing, and it was great. And it was nice to see. I didn't feel like I was going to be chastised. If I could slide in and out, that was my MO. But I knew that I wanted something to change in my life. And so that's when I started talking to people. And I just gave my first class.
Yes, you did.
I did.
You taught our first class here.
It was so much fun.
I just love hearing the progression. And I think we talk about our faith journey. That's part of that Methodist, the journey of grace, over time there. And we experience those valleys and those struggles, but even in those moments, we find there are memories or connections or individuals, or even just our own time. Because as you were sharing, Lisa, even in those places that you didn't have a good church connection or a good family connection in those, there was still within you that desire to grow spiritually,
Yeah.
and to grow into your full authentic self.
And even though I didn't go to church, my church was my mom, my
Yes.
aunt, and my grandparents. They were
Mhm.
huge church. I learned a lot about God listening to my mom and listening to my aunt, and I learned all the positives about God's love and Jesus, and all of the negative stuff was left at the door. I didn't hear any of that stuff. It was all positive. Never once did my mom look at me and go, "Because you're homosexual, you're never going to make it through the gates of heaven." So my mom and my stepdad used to do Bible study classes. They were both pastors. They both became pastors. After my stepdad passed, my mother continued to do Bible study in her home, and so I was present with one of those Bible studies, and just to show you the shift of where she was at, and one of the members that was at this gathering said, "Well, what about this passage here about homosexuality?" And she just paused and she looked at me and she was like, "I don't know everything." And I'm like, that is actually a good answer. You don't know everything. And she was like, "I don't know everything. That's something you're going to have to find out on your own. Do a little more diving, because I can't answer that question for you. I can tell you what it means to me, but I can't tell you what it means for yourself." And the next week, they were supposed to meet again, and she canceled that. And she said, "Listen, I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. And the reason I can't do it anymore is because I no longer have the information that I need to be able to lead this and feel secure in myself, knowing that this is what I'm supposed to be doing." She said, I need to learn more. So she started studying on her own, and
Wow.
she didn't want to, tell somebody the wrong thing. So.
Sure. Okay. Let's open up the floor to questions on their spiritual walk or their journey. Yes? No? Yeah? Oh, okay. Yes.
Have you found it hard to share your faith with the gay community?
It's interesting. I haven't found it hard to share my faith with the gay community. I find it interesting that the gay community has a hard time hearing my faith story. And not the entire gay community, only, certain select few people. Because I have people who walk up to me and go, "Why are you at a church that doesn't affirm? It's not a gay affirming church." And this is just my viewpoint, okay? I don't need to affirm that I'm gay. I already know that. God already knows that. Everybody that I know that knows me already knows that. I don't need to have that affirmation of that in front of me all the time. That is not the reason I come to church. The reason I come to church is to grow in my spirituality and love and my neighbors and my family and all of that. And I find that some people that I know have a hard time coming into a building that does not have a gay flag flying, because I think they use that as a symbol of safety or as a symbol of recognition. I don't use that as a safety or recognition. I'm like, okay, so they are open and accepting to all. Well, all churches should be open and accepting to all. It should not be, pride flag shown here. I mean, it's a wonderful symbol, but so is the cross. The cross is a wonderful symbol. The cross signifies everything. It's like all of your sins have been accounted for. You see that, and it's like Jesus died for us, and so we shouldn't have these conversations, or these not conversations. We shouldn't have these issues in the day and age that we're in now. But we do, we do. We have a lot of issues, but In a group setting, it's difficult. On a one-to-one, it is not. Because in my performances, when I go out and do these restaurants and stuff, I'll have people that walk up to me and say, hey, what do you do for your full-time job? And I'm like, this is what I do. Music. But, I work with my church. Oh, well, what church do you go to? Well, I go to Anona United Methodist. Oh, United Methodist. They're having a hard time right now. Well, everybody's having a hard time right now. It's just, it's all part of growth. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, talk to me about that. So then I talk to them about that. And, well, where do you stand in your faith? Well, my faith is I believe in God. I believe in Jesus Christ. And I believe that everyone should love everyone. You may not agree with them, but you should love them, period. You may not like what they do, but you should love them, And so then that opens up another gateway to another conversation, which opens up a gateway to another conversation. And these people will still contact me and say, hey, how's it going? And some of them are like, can we attend classes? I mean, you're doing discipleship classes. I have yet to have one from an outside come in, but they're asking about it. So it's like that conversation, it just opens up more and up and more and more. And I hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Any other questions?
I had something to add.
Yeah, please
Okay.
do.
No, I have a very different take on it. Obviously, there's some differences, but similarities. No, I actually have experienced, like I said, when I first came to the church and I was out there observing and stuff, and just observing people being yourselves. Well, I found that like Lisa said, it was, oh, where do you go? And I tell them, and, oh, yeah, they're having so many problems. Are you sure that's, safe for you? Yeah. Okay, it is. But what I found is that the people that ask the questions and then they don't do anything about what they tell you is because they have trouble walking in the doors to where people love themselves and they love God, because I found that superficial people out there in the LGBT community, and they talk a lot about going to a church and stuff, but then they don't, and then you really find out the truth. So it's just
Okay. Two other questions I want to throw out to you two. This is broad, big church and community, or broader community. One question we had asked, how does the division regarding LGBTQ issues in the United Methodist Church make you feel about Anona? As the Methodist Church is kind of walking through this process.
Why do I have to always go first? Because I'm the older one. I could hear that now. I do like to talk, which is different because I don't usually talk without my guitar. So this is nice. But so repeat the question.
How does the division in the church right now make you feel about Anona? The grander church, big church. Methodist
Okay,
church.
I think that the way that makes me feel is, well, I'm actually proud. I know I'm very proud that we're having these conversations and that we are making strides to connect and communicate. I think above all, communication is the most important thing that we can do for each other and with each other. So learning how to communicate, because some people don't know how to communicate. They know how to talk, but they don't know how to listen. So I think the POV that we did and these sessions grow that. I think overall, when I first walked through the doors of this church, I was a little nervous. I wasn't so nervous that it would stop me from coming back, but I was just nervous because I don't know how you all are, but I am. Are they going to like me? Why am I here? Okay, why am I here? I know you want me to be here, but why am I here? And then as I got to know people a little at a time, and then it was layers. So it was in 2019 when we had the vote and we did the all church. That was like, I never ever stand up and say anything about anything up until 2019. And then I'm standing up and I'm like, why is this wording on this document? Why is this worded this way? And so it's like, and I didn't do that on my own. I swear there was this little thing behind me that went, you're going to stand up. And I'm like, no, I'm not. And and that just started me being more open and honest, because once that conversation happened, then the conversations in the small groups discussions that opened up more, because now we're talking about discipleship. Well, discipleship is a lot more than just what's printed on that book. It's all about talking to each other and sharing with each other and growing in faith with each other. And so that opened up a whole new conversation. So I'm very excited about how things are progressing. I'm not going to say I wish it would progress a little bit faster, but change is never fast. And if it is very fast, it's usually something very traumatic, and it's like, oh, gosh, So I'm very happy for the shift and the change, however, be it fast or slow that may go. I'm still very happy about it.
Anything to add, Lyann?
I have to be honest. I asked Lisa. I said, what do you think about this? What are you going to do? And because I had heard some other LGBTQ members have left the church, and I was kind of liking you guys. And but I trust her. But first and foremost, I trust God. And so we talked about it, and I think one of the things that I found from God is patience. Because like you said, change doesn't happen overnight. Rome wasn't built in a day. But at least there's growth. And I think that's what I like to see is just growth. And I like being a part of something that's growing, not only growing for us, but growing for our generations to come, because it's my grandsons, and this world already has enough stuff going on. So.
Yeah. I remember when we were talking before and sharing with both of you about just my gratefulness for y'all being here with us in this journey, and thankful that you were willing to stay. And I forget which one of you responded, but it was the response was who would be there to help teach and educate? That was you, right? Okay, all right. Just the fact that you're willing to be present and to help us in that journey, just as you've been seeking to grow in your lives, in your spiritual journey, in your relationship with each other, you're also willing to help us learn. And that is a gift. That is a gift you give us for this. And I will speak for myself, but I think for y'all too, we are grateful for that gift.
Thank you.
Last question for you both for the evening. How can we support the LGBTQ community? Are there some things that, helpful thoughts or ideas, or what can we do to be more supportive?
Do you want to go first? No, naturally. I'll set a trend. Yeah, I do. That's kind of a perplexing question, because there's a lot that you can do. I mean, there's like you and I were talking, or we were all talking about. Sometimes it's just blows my mind that there are still people who have never had communication with anybody who's homosexual. And I just find that very hard to believe sometimes, but I can understand that would happen. Like if you don't have someone who's willing to speak out, you have a gay family member, they're not willing to speak out, they're willing to, stay closeted, as it were, and or friends because they are afraid of the reaction of new information. I think as far as support with the LGBT community, just being open-hearted and listening no one gets through their daily life without having some little snag, something that tugs at your heart, something that hurts, or on the opposite side of that, most of your days could be filled with total joy. And it's like I think as a community, sharing that joy and that love with everybody around us, regardless of who it is it's invaluable. I mean, it's just, that's what we do. And I think as far as the support for the LGBT plus community, if you are so called, there are different avenues that you can do, as far as health aspects. I mean, you could, be a support system for someone who is going through some horrible illness. Like I have a friend of mine that I talk with who has been HIV positive since 1984, and he's starting to have some really bad health issues associated with the HIV stuff. And he calls me and texts me daily and says, I just need to talk. And that is so valuable that he has somebody who he can talk to. So I think if you can reach out in that capacity, that's one thing to do. Or something on a joyful side is go to a pride parade, just walk around the community and see that these are people. They breathe, they eat, they love, they have children, they have grandchildren. They're proud of who they are. They're proud of their families. They're proud of their friends. You will get the occasional peacock, as I call them, who likes to overdo it. I'm a firm believer in keep your clothes on. Some of the pride parade stuff is a little, I'm like, yeah, okay. Then that's why we get a bad rap. But overall, we all want the same things. We all want to be loved. We all want to love. We all want to belong. We want to be accepted for who we truly are. We don't want to have to deal with masks. We don't want to have to deal with, are you accepting me because I can give you something? Or are you accepting me because I am a living, breathing human being, a creation of God? And so however you can support that that's the ultimate. So
Thank you. Lyann?
Thank you.
I thought you were going to say ditto.
Ditto. No, what she said is absolutely, it's coming from God. So thank you. It was perfect.
All right. Guys, can we give a hand, please? Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. I know. It's love. I just want to say,
Lyann wants the final word, so we're going to give her the final word.
yeah, really. No, just real quick. I just wanted to add something because, at the beginning, I had said that you'll find out about, the way my life is now, and I had gone back up. This is total transparency, but I had gone back up to Tennessee to see my dad, and I told Lisa, I said, "Look, I'm not going to go ask questions or anything like that. He can be who he is. He's not going to change." But I'm not going to ask any question. I'm just going to go and be in his space because I wasn't sure how much longer he had. And the second day that I was there, he says, "I got something to tell you." And I said, "Okay, what is it?" And he says, "Well, those things that I did to you, well, I didn't know it was going to hurt you, but I'd do it all over again." And then in the second breath, he said, "Oh, and your mom and I knew that you were gay when you were little." So he passed about several months after that. And I really didn't have any questions for him because I am so proud and I love myself so much today because God has put so many wonderful people and has placed me in places where I would have not normally been had I not listened to God. That makes me who I am today. And so I'm so happy I'm here and to be a part of this church family. because I do feel loved.
Well, we are blessed for both of you. Thank you, guys. All right, so Richard, are you closing us this evening?
No.
Casey. All right, Richard and Casey, come on up.
I have to say something else. I'm sorry. I know you guys want to go. My dear wife, I respect you and I love you so much and I adore you. And this meeting has been truly a gift for us. Today is Lisa's mom's celestial birthday. So all the love that her mom had for her, it just comes out of her. And I just wanted to say thank you for doing this today with us.
It's awesome. What else do you say, guys? The beauty of transparency cannot be denied. I want you to look around the room, not at each other. I want you to look at, this is our children's environment, all right? And I want you to read some things that we teach our kids that I hope that our church will be moving forward. And I want to start over there. I should treat others the way I want to be treated. This is called what? The golden rule. You are loved. You are safe. You are chosen. Love God. Love people. What are these called? Great commandments. You are the light of the world. This is our story. And we might differ on a lot of things, but the thing that we're trying to focus on as we go through this journey together, as we learn about how to love one another, hold to these things. Hold it, wherever you stand, hold to these things, and we will walk this journey together, holding each other, wanting the best for each other, no matter who you are. I will keep circling back because I want the language to become very common among us. The way I'm describing this is from the communion table perspective. What do we say every time we offer communion in this church? This table is open to you. If. There is an if. Right? There's an if. If you are seeking a relationship with Jesus Christ, this table is open to you. That is the invitation at communion, and that is my hope for the invitation for this church. If you are seeking a relationship with Jesus Christ, the doors are open to you. The seats are open to you. The leadership is open to you. The church is open to you, no matter what. Can we agree on that? That's my hope. That's the hope for the future of this church moving forward. And we differ, and I've said this many times as well, we differ on many, many things. Many things. And we ain't kicking nobody out for anything else. Are we? No. We're not going to pick a thing. We're not going to pick a person. We're not going to pick a way and say, you're not welcome. I love the symbolism that you gave. I love that when we talk, so Lisa's now part of the leadership team for this, and she was at her first meeting, and she was talking about labels. And I think you sort of circled to that a little bit tonight when you started talking about the cross versus the flag outside of the church. That was part of the story that she shared. But the labels may not be helpful if we can just focus on the cross and seek to be the church of Jesus Christ. Let's be that together. Let's pray for this night, for these table talks. Have not every one of them done an awesome job? Every single one of them. So thank you, Ashley, who's still in the room. Nate, who's going to be back in how many more weeks? So Nate's going to be back on the 30th to lead us again on the organ for a Sunday. Who am I missing? Y'all and Alex at the very beginning. So every one of them, the courage it takes to do this, I wouldn't want to get up here and talk about my life with this level of transparency, right? And to be able to get up here and do this, it is nothing but a gift. So thank you guys for the courage that it took, for the love to be able to see between you. It was just absolutely beautiful. Sort of like Sunday, let's extend our hands towards them and let's pray. God, we thank you. We thank you for a community that is trying to walk a journey that you're calling us to. And Lord, for each one of us to have the ability to be able to look into one another's eyes, to just see the lessons that are here in this room on the walls, the desire to treat one another as we wish to be treated, to say that you're safe, you're loved, you're chosen, to be able to say, God, that you are the light of the world, that light's been placed within us to be able to share with others, and that we get to see that light shine in every single person because we're all your children. We ask, God, that you bless us as we walk forward in our fallibility, in our messing up of our language, of how we treat one another, of how we think about ourselves, about how we think about others. And God, to just be able to place all that before you as you invite us to walk the journey, realizing that that's why we need you. It's why we need your grace, why we need your presence. Give us the wisdom to walk this journey of faith wisely, clinging closely to you, looking at the greatest symbol there is on this planet, the cross, and realizing how much you love us and that you call us to love one another. Lord, we give thanks for Lyann and for Lisa tonight, for the courage it took for them to step forward to share, for all the others that have shared with us, that we could just come to learn and to understand a little bit more. We lift them up as representatives. And Lord, we pray all of this in the name of Jesus the Christ, the one who went to that cross. And we all say, Amen. Amen.
So guys, as we are preparing to head out, I know that one thing that we always get is what's the next thing? What's next? What's next? What's next? And so this is our last listening and learning session. Actually, oh, you guys need a minute, don't you? Everyone is drying their eyes. Yeah, okay, take a second. This is our last listening and learning session, so we're really looking forward to what we're going to be able to offer in the fall to kind of continue in this movement of increasing our empathy, our understanding, our inclusion, all of that good stuff. And so one thing, everyone's always asking what we can do. Jackie actually is going to share a few practical things of how we can take everything that we've been learning and live it out in our day-to-day lives. So, Jackie first.
And we're going to email out these as far as some more details. But I think just after listening tonight, we can agree on some things. Growth is slightly uncomfortable, right? Growth sometimes challenges us to step out of our comfort zone. We did this when we did the anti-racism work. We stepped into some perhaps not comfortable situations because we became the minority, right? When we started working with the Ridgecrest community, but we built relationships through that, and then we stretched ourselves. So the overall thought is that we continue on that journey to continue growing. There's so many areas that we all can step into that push ourselves a little bit comfort-wise of perhaps something we haven't done before. And we are hoping that our next kind of thing may be more of the table talks that would be coming along and looking at other subjects and continuing working on our communication skills, those kinds of things. So we're going to challenge everybody before our kickoff in the fall, and you'll hear more about that, would be to challenge ourselves into taking an action step, whether it's to support this community, whether it's with anti-racism work, maybe it's just to challenge our faith a little bit and putting our faith into action. So we're going to be sending an email out with just opportunities to step up in different places. And it might be, we have a lot of folks that say, well, I'm not able-bodied. I can't do a lot of things anymore. Guess what? We've got a place you can plug in. We've got a ministry called Sit and Serve that comes and does all kinds of things sitting down together. We had a group working with our youth recently, cutting out material to make washable sanitary pads to be able to send to Guatemala to help girls stay in school that miss a week school every month. So there's no excuse, okay? We're going to get you plugged in somewhere. On the other end of the scale, we've got needs for habitat builds that changes generational wealth for single moms, for a lot of folks of color. That being in that habitat house not only ups the chance of their kids graduating high school, it will up their chance they will be homeowners. They learn to budget. They pay a mortgage. They keep a job. They see their parents doing this. It is generational change, changes the wealth of a family. So all the things we do and partner with, we're looking at those kinds of connections. So the challenge is just to get out there and get connected, find out what your joy spot is. You know, that's come back again and again, that you see that in Anona. Where do you find your joy, and how we can share that and shine that light to others. So we'll be emailing out some specific opportunities with various levels and various areas of interest. So we just challenge you to kind of keep an eye out for that and really find a place to plug in that may be out of your comfort zone a little bit. You may find out it's what you love to do.
So Jackie's going to email out some practical things as far as that goes. And then we're going to kind of make it a couple months long challenge. And we're inviting everyone, not only this group, but we're going to extend the invite to others as well, to come back on Monday, September 18th at 6 p.m. We'll meet right back in here in Wesley Hall. We're going to do dinner because Methodists. So we're going to do dinner, and we're going to sit around tables, and we're going to try out something that Jackie and Richard have both referenced, which is something we're calling table talks. So raise your hand if you did POV back in the day. Good handful of people. Raise your hand if you liked POV back in the day. Almost everyone, just kidding. So pretty much everybody loved that. So what we're hoping to do is, in preparation for the big vote that's coming next year in General Conference, we want to bring back the spirit of POV. If you don't know what that is, it's called Point of View, and it was just an opportunity for folks to gather and have real conversations in the spirit of empathy, really try to learn each other's stories, have these kind of conversations, but at a more personal level. And if you did the Seeing Gray class, really putting into practice what we were learning about there, of actually talking to each other, having those conversations. Lisa mentioned, some people have never talked to a person from the LGBTQ community. That won't be the sole and only focus, but this gives us those environments and spaces to be able to talk about all kinds of different things. And so on September 18th, we're going to give it a little practice, and we're inviting everyone to come back, and the topic will just be to share with each other, what have you been doing the past couple months, and how has it been going, and where have you been able to serve? What have you been seeing in these different communities, and how are we putting into practice what we've learned all summer through hearing our friends' stories? When we did our anti-racism work, we always think that we need a big name event with a label on it, labels, to not check the box in a bad way, but to make sure that we're doing something for these communities that we care about, etc. Really, the hope, those things are great, but the hope is that what we're learning is affecting our day-to-day interactions with people. So the challenge is, go find a place to serve, come back on September 18th at 6 p.m. We'll email all of this out, and we're going to have dinner and talk about how it's been going. And then in the spring, we'll keep on going with that. And we're going to, in preparation for the vote, make more of those table talk spaces, dates and times to be announced, but have that in the back of your mind, that that's kind of how we're going to continue this on and prepare for the vote to happen. For those who are interested in learning a little bit more about this specific community, the LGBTQ plus community, we are looking at offering a book study in the fall that will be centered around inclusion. We're still picking curriculum, but stay tuned for that. And if you have any questions at all, missions and service-wise, Jackie's your gal. If you have any questions about table talks or the book study, you can email me or anyone else from the leadership team, of course. But other than that, thank you guys so much for being here. Tell your friends about all of those opportunities, and we love you. Thank you for being a church that is welcoming for everybody, and we're so grateful to be church family with you. Now get out of here.
You guys did great.